Welcome to OurSport. I'm your host, Larry. John is doing the recording and editing as always. Let's talk about the crazy. The crazy finally hit college football. We were waiting for it for a long time. It started last week when Georgia lost at home to South Carolina. Finally, we're getting rid of some of the chalk. Teams are getting upset. And this week, Wisconsin on the road, losing to Illinois. The first thing I thought of when Illinois was lining up for the field goal to win the game was wind. You don't think about it when you're watching it on TV maybe, but we were just at that stadium last week, the week before for the Michigan game. And we walked around beforehand. We got in a day early, looked around Champaign, went to the stadium, took a look at it, and we could see a couple times where there's entryways, ground level to the stadium. Gusts of wind coming in and out affected the passing game for both teams when we were there. And I was wondering if that was going to affect the kick. It seemed like an easy kick, but it didn't. They pull off the upset. And Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin, he's a great back, probably the best back in America, definitely a Heisman finalist. He's a unique kid. He's a big kid, about 225 pounds, but a track athlete, state champion in New Jersey, two-time state champion for, I think, the 100 meters. Kind of unusual for a big kid. Smart, had a Harvard scholarship. But he's had a problem all the way since his freshman year. He fumbles. He always fumbles. He had a ton of them as a freshman. It's been kind of going less and less as the seasons have gone on. He definitely cut into it as a sophomore, but he had a big fumble at the end of this game. And they capitalized on it. Illinois did. Wisconsin, 3rd and 5 to try to ice the game late. And I don't know why they didn't run the ball with Taylor. Fumbles or not, he's not going to do that often. He's almost worth fumbles. He's so productive. But they throw the ball, and Wisconsin's quarterback, Jack Cohn, gets picked for only like the second time this year. Gives Illinois a chance. Probably the biggest upset of the year. More than Georgia, I would say. We'll see. Now, Wisconsin on the road next week at Ohio State. Cranky. They're going to be ready for that game. This is maybe the worst thing that could have happened to Ohio State is that they get the angry version of Wisconsin coming in. Another game was interesting. Tennessee, Alabama. Boy, there are a bunch of interesting games this week. This one especially. Tennessee had a chance in this game. And it was 21-13. They finally get Alabama off the field. Tua Tagovailoa, Alabama's quarterback, gets hurt. This is Tennessee's chance. They have the backup in there. Well, I should say the real backup is over there in Oklahoma playing in Norman. So Alabama's essentially down to a third stringer. We talked about the teams having to go through this in one of our earlier episodes. And Tennessee has a legitimate chance in this game. They're playing them hard. They're out rushing them. The cracks in Alabama's defense are starting to show. And the ball goes incomplete. And there's a roughing the passer call on Tennessee. It's a fucking terrible call. This is a horrible call. I don't know what the referee's doing calling this. And I understand you don't want taunting. I understand protecting the quarterback. This I'm kind of okay with. You know, the quarterbacks now, who wants to see the backup quarterback? You don't want the quarterback get hit in his legs. You don't want the quarterback to get hit in his head unnecessarily. It's changed a lot over the years. I remember back in the day in the NFL, Buddy Ryan, his defenses used to love attacking the quarterback, and he knew every rule about it. You'd have 2 steps allowed to get to the quarterback. You were able to take 2 steps and still contact the quarterback. And Buddy Ryan taught his guys at that second step to launch their bodies at the quarterback, make your body a missile. And I remember they hit Troy Aikman so hard one time, he bit a hole in his tongue. So things have changed. We don't do that anymore. I understand you don't want a flagrant late hit on the quarterback, but this was a bullshit call. I mean, all he did was shove the quarterback down, and he didn't really shove him that hard. I mean, are we worried about hurting the quarterback's feelings at this point? Is this what we want to show? This is really not even that bad of taunting. It's just a little physical intimidation. This is part of football. This is defensive football. Now, I don't know if Tennessee would have won this game anyway because they're undisciplined, and it really showed. I think Alabama's discipline would have paid off, but man, you don't know. You don't know. Down 21-13, all of a sudden, the quarterback gets the ball for Tennessee, goes down and maybe scores, make it a tie game late. I mean, nobody expected this game to be close at all. Everybody's thinking 52-3, a blowout. They Tennessee played better in this game than they did against Florida, against a much better team. But the referees decided it. And this is a big part of football now, is the referees deciding what's going on. It's too bad because I think Tennessee, with a chance to beat Alabama, would have been some of the best theater of the year. This, do you talk about must-see television? Man, that would have been great. But the referees got involved over some ticky-tack, awful call, and cost Tennessee their chance to win a game.
I'd just like to say,
Yeah.
I don't actually think it was a roughing the passer call. I think it wasn't unsportsmanlike for pushing him down. Because he got there at, I think, the same time as when he threw it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was taunting. Like...
It was taunting.
Yeah.
Then why did you call taunting instead of roughing the passer?
I don't know. It could have just been like a missed call.
He didn't take the guy and shove him hard. All he did was kind of push on him a little bit. And it was really kind of a baby call, man. It was a bad call.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's going on. I'm telling you, this is a real thing. I don't care how dumb this sounds. You want to solve a lot of football's problems? Here's a great solution. You take a hood and you put it over the referee's face. Don't show the referees' faces. Because I guarantee you, they love being on TV. Back in the day, nobody knew who Gene Steratore is. Now we know who Gene Steratore is because he's got that little smirk when he was a referee and he had personality. I don't give a damn about the referee. Who wants to see the referee on TV? But they know if they call enough interference calls or roughing the passer or some bullshit like this happen, they're going to be on TV and they're going to be at the neighborhood barbecue and say, "Hey, Billy, I saw you on TV the other day." And they become celebrities. A referee should not be a celebrity. You want to talk about bad? This was bad. You want to see how bad it can get? Look at the NFL. Look what's going on there. Those referees are ridiculous. So, yeah, Tennessee. That close if it wasn't for some stupid-ass referee call. Before I move on from this game, though, let me talk about Tua Tagovailoa. I got some thoughts on him. I love this kid. He is so fun. I'm not an Alabama fan, but if you just love good football, he's great. There's so many things about his game. He's got the quick release. He's accurate. There's comparisons because of his size to Drew Brees. I think he might be more accurate than Drew Brees. Might have a better release. Here's what I worry about. If you're in the Dynasty League, this is starting to become more of a thing. Tua's especially on your radar.
Dynasty League? You want to explain Dynasty?
Dynasty League it's like fantasy football, but when you draft a player, instead of having him for that year, you have him his whole career. So players like Tua are at a premium. Jonathan Taylor's going to be at a premium. Thank you, John. So you keep an eye on him if you're in a Dynasty League or just if you love football. Here's what I worry about with him. This guy is always hurt. And the bad part about it especially is he's so effective in the passing game. A lot of times you watch him, he plants that back foot or he takes a hitch and the ball's out. His protection is really good. So he does not hold on to the ball necessarily. So he's getting hurt with a bare minimum of contact. There are times where he has to scramble or he takes a hit in the pocket. Now, you're going to the NFL. And if you look at Tua Tagovailoa's frame, he's not a big dude, but he's getting everything he can out of his frame because that strength and conditioning staff at Alabama is one of the best in the country. It might be the best in the country. That's a hard metric to measure. But they don't lack for strength and conditioning, and his body, in terms of the muscle mass he adds, the body armor, so to speak, it's as much as he can get, and he's still getting hurt. Now, you talk about him going to the NFL, and you look at that league, you have some of the biggest quarterbacks you'll ever see in that league. Cam Newton has not been healthy in that league for 3 or 4 or 5 years. That league broke Andrew Luck. Those guys are 6'5", 240. They look like tight ends. And Tua looks like Drew Brees without being as compact. I wonder what happens to him when he gets to the NFL. I think everything about him screams franchise quarterback. Some people like Mike Lombardi disagree. They say he's a good player, not a great player. I respect Mike Lombardi's opinion a lot. I disagree completely. He has everything you look for. He's a generational quarterback in terms of processing, accuracy, fundamentals. But man, he's gonna get the hell beat out of him in that league. And the problem is he's gonna go to a bad team where comparably he does not have the protection he has here. He's got some studs up front in the Alabama offensive line. They give him a lot of time. And God help him if he goes to somewhere like Miami. he might have a short career in the league because of that. Okay, let's talk about Penn State, Michigan. The night game here. I should have more respect for Penn State than I do. They're going to make our top 10. They're really good. Something about them throws me off. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's like almost like they play down to their competition at times. Maryland wasn't the case. Maryland started running off at the mouth. They wanted to make Penn State a rivalry. James Franklin, Penn State's head coach, knew that, and he says this was what kind of rivalry it's going to be. They went in there and just blew their doors off at Maryland. Aside from that, they've kind of messed around with teams here and there. The average teams on our schedule, not the bad teams. And for some reason, I just cannot, even though there's teams in our top 10, I cannot think of them at the same level as Ohio State or even Wisconsin. There's something about them I just cannot buy. Maybe it's because they started out hot against Michigan and they let Michigan back in the game. They got kind of outplayed for 3 quarters. Now, Michigan, of course they lost this game. We said they were going to lose this game. And you want to talk about their problem, their biggest problem? It starts with coaching. That's their biggest problem.
They have a lot of biggest problems.
They got a lot of biggest problems. That's not all of it. But here's the thing. It's an indictment on the coaching staff. Look at this graphic John's going to put up here in a minute. They're all their big road games since the Harbaugh tenure. Now, look at the first quarter scoring. This is the first quarter scoring of all these road games. I don't think I've left out a single big road game. There's not a single road game here that was of any significance that I put in here that they did outscore their opponent, where they had a 21-0 advantage. It didn't happen. All of these road games are doing this. They're going in there and they get down 7-0, 14-0. And then they have to adjust. They start from behind on the road. That's not good coaching. That's terrible coaching. You can't have your team ready. You can't have anything ahead of time that allows you to say, hey, you know what? Let's have some plays. We studied this team for a week. Let's have some things we know we can do and get up on this team. And let us have the advantage. Let's try to take the crowd out of it. No. Let's go in there and twiddle our thumbs and mess around and make sure that we keep the home crowd into the game for the entirety of the game. You'll also see on this graphic the results of these games. They lost almost every one of them. One of the games I put on here was the Michigan State game a few years ago, where that was a 3-9 Michigan State team. They beat that 3-9 team. I don't know if you consider that a big road game. I guess you do because it's their rival, but I don't know if you get a lot of credit for beating that team. I don't think Jim Harbaugh gets fired. I think they're going to lose more games, but I think that he's going to resign at the end of the year. I think they're going to both come to the agreement, him and the administration, that he's going to step away from this job. It's just not working. It's too bad, too. I mean, everybody that's a Michigan fan wanted him to work, but I can't tell you. The job's too big for him. It's one of the things I said before. The job is just too big for him.
Guy that coached in the NFL brought a team to an NFC Championship game. The job in Michigan's too big for him?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, you look at it, he's never won a conference in college. This is one of the things maybe you should look for, proven a winner. He's never even won a conference title. Now, in his early days at Michigan, when I defended him, people were saying that. I said, well, yeah, he won a conference that Urban Meyer never won. He won the NFC. He won that conference. But really, maybe that was a warning sign that even at Stanford, he didn't win the conference, not once, even though he went 12-1. He's no history of winning anything of significance other than piling up a lot of regular season wins, which some of those could be impressive. I don't know. What is his signature win at Michigan? Yeah.
So, say he does get fired.
Seriously, what's his signature win at Michigan? What's the biggest win he's ever had?
Probably killing Penn State.
Okay.
Probably killing Penn State.
Right. Penn State came to Michigan about 3 years ago, and they blew Penn State's doors off, and that team ended up winning the Big Ten. Okay. Yeah. 5 years.
5 years.
That's in 5 years. Okay. He has not even won the division in 5 years. His record on the road is terrible. He's 1-10 on the road against top 10 teams or ranked teams?
Something like that.
It's okay. And the one team he beat last year was the Michigan State team that finished 7-6. You got to give him credit for that because Michigan State makes them to the Super Bowl, and that is a win. But they didn't hire him in Michigan to win one game like this every 5 years. No, that's not what a program like Michigan. The SEC fans got to make fun of it. That's fine. This is still one of the top programs in the country. You look at how much money it makes, the fan interest. There's still 110,000 people showing up at the stadium through all these disappointing years, through coaches like Brady Hoke. The advantages you have at a school like this, it's one of the 2 premier teams in its own conference. It's one of the best academic schools to the point where you could use it as a tool to recruit, but not enough of a hindrance to keep good students, to keep poor students away. You have so many advantages at this school, and you really have more advantages than every team in your conference than Ohio State. Ohio State has more. Aside from that, I don't know, you might have more than Ohio State because you can use academics as a recruiting tool more than Ohio State can.
Okay, so say Harbaugh resigns or gets fired. Who's the next coach? Who are they bringing after him?
Well, it's not a great year for a pool of coaches. I like Matt Rule at Baylor. Mm-hmm. I like him a lot. He's got these Northeast roots. He's a Penn State alum. He did win his conference at Temple. Had the humiliating loss. Handed that to Penn State the first game of the year before they knew how good Temple was. The meme, boy, if you could find that meme with the Penn State offensive line where they sacked Penn State like 11 times, that's going to be difficult to find. Matt Rule, I look at somebody who's highly regarded by NFL teams. Matt Rule, Baylor, highly regarded. Matt Campbell, Iowa State. Both of these guys, highly regarded by NFL teams. That tells you a lot. When your head coach at Baylor is getting contacted by New York Jets, that should be what's happening to the head coach at Texas and USC. But it's not. Okay, moving on. In the Pac-12, 2 huge games basically decided the divisions. Utah played a home game against the feisty Arizona State team, completely handled them. They almost certainly wrapped up the South. They're going to be in the Pac-12 championship game. On the other side, Oregon finally won a big road game. They played at Washington. The thing I love about this game is you had these highly regarded quarterback prospects, Jacob Eason for Washington and Justin Herbert for Oregon, and the coaches were like, you know what, they're starting to struggle a little bit. They just took the game out of their hands. They just have dominant offensive lines, and they both let the offensive lines go to work. And this was a really entertaining game to watch because this was like watching a heavyweight championship bout where 2 heavyweight boxers in a ring and they're just exchanging body blows for 15 rounds. That was really fun. Really one of my favorite games of the year so far. People don't like these kind of games as much. They like apparently the Baylor TCU 63-59 games. I don't care for that. I like the line of scrimmage games. This one was great.
I'd also like to mention that this is the same guy who was dissing the Oregon offensive line for getting bullied by Auburn.
Well, they did.
At the beginning of the year.
They did. Yeah. Well, they did. They got bullied by Auburn. The Auburn defensive front might be the best in the country.
Fine.
If it's not, and this would be a great matchup, if Auburn does not have the best defensive line in the country, it might be Utah. And just the thought of Oregon and Utah, like Utah's almost certainly going to get in there, like their chance is 98%. I think Oregon's is almost impossible. They're not going to get in there. This is going to be the matchup for sure. And we get to see them really tested when they play that Utah defensive line, and we're talking about 5 weeks ahead from now, but we already know what's going on there. So much happened yesterday or Saturday that kind of went under the radar. Big events in college football. The craziness really starting to hit in full force. Boise, undefeated, the best chance for the G5 to get a team in the playoff, an outside chance as always, lost to BYU. Boise's quarterback was out, Hank Brockmeyer, but you can make an excuse for that, but BYU's got an excellent quarterback, Travis Wilson, he was out. So now the torch gets passed to App State. App State's ranked 24 in the country, 6-0. I watched that Louisiana game with them real carefully. We talked about Louisiana on a previous podcast, picked them up App State. No, App State wasn't having it. Handled their business. First win ever by a ranked Sun Belt school. They're 6-0. They're not going to get in the playoff because they're really the worst conference in college football. They could be. What do you think? They can make the Sugar Bowl.
I mean, they could pull a UCF, maybe win the
maybe the Fiesta Bowl.
Maybe get to like the something like that.
App State and the Fiesta Bowl would just be crazy.
Play a team like Auburn, like UCF did.
Oh my God, that'd be great. Yeah, they'd get killed. Kansas.
UCF didn't get killed. They upset them.
UCF got killed by LSU.
I'm talking about Auburn.
I'm talking about Fiesta Bowl last year. We're on a tangent. Anyway, okay. Kansas. Oh, they were gave Texas the game of their life. frightened them completely, and Texas needed a last-minute field goal to beat them 50-48. Texas might be the worst tackling team in the country. They cannot tackle teams. And if you watch this highlight right here, John's going to pull it up, where the Kansas players run again. Watch number 25 on this play. Look at, defense is about effort. Watch this effort or lack of effort on this play, and that's, come on, man, it doesn't belong on a football field, even a Big 12 football field. That's just pitiful. SMU keeps rolling, undefeated, beat Temple. Temple's a good team in that conference, and also in that conference, Cincinnati won again, 6-1. Cincinnati's only losses to Ohio State. Memphis won big time in a game against a good Tulane team. There's so many good teams in this conference, and now we've got the showdown coming up that we talked about, SMU and Memphis later on in the year, both in the same division. Georgia Tech, unbelievably, loses to the Citadel, beats Miami, and Georgia Tech's bad this year. That's not a good team. Miami's better than that, or so you would think. That's pretty terrible loss for them. Oregon State upsets Cal. Cal's on a good roll. They're about 4-0, and they're on a losing streak. And our boy Evan Weaver from Cal, even valiant in a losing effort. This guy's a monster. 22 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackle for loss. UAB, 6-1 under Coach Bill Clark. Really, the last couple of years, they were on not a death penalty. They canceled the program for a year, and they did well for the last 2 years. Now, what happens is they had a large senior class, and they lost almost the entirety of these seniors, and they only had a few returning starters on both sides of the ball. And again, they're 6-1. So Bill Clark, he won a lot of Coach of the Year awards the last couple of years. I'm not talking about for his conference. I'm talking about for the whole Coach of the Year of all of college football. And under the radar, kind of, at 6-1, nobody's talking about them.
Wait, the guy who brought them, who started coaching them after they got terminated, he's still there?
Yeah.
Wow, he got hired?
Not for long.
Nah,
somebody's going to get him soon.
Yeah.
Georgia State at Army, a cool scene at this game. Georgia State defeats the United States Military Academy, but at halftime they had 50 people on the field getting inducted into the Army, and at the end of the game, Georgia State went and they stood behind Army while they were playing their alma mater. Just a lot of respect for the United States Military Academy. You have to love that. Wake Forest, with their backup quarterback, beats Florida State. Unbelievable. Wake Forest, 6-1. And, of course, you have to talk about the UNC Virginia Tech game. This game was nuts. I mean, all of yesterday was nuts, really, or Saturday, I suppose. It depends when you're watching this. But this game goes to 6 overtimes. Mac Brown doing yeoman's work at UNC. One of the top 2 players in the entire country committed to him over the weekend, a defensive end out of North Carolina. And much better than expected results. But in Virginia Tech, they're talking about fiery Justin Fuentes. They talked about all the people who left for the transfer portal, about what a terrible fit this is. It was supposed to be one of the best fits they ever saw in terms of culture when they hired him, and it just turned out it wasn't working well. Now Virginia Tech's 5-2. And all of a sudden have some momentum, have a bye week. There was an article in the local paper for Virginia Tech last year. This is kind of an unbelievable article to me. They were on the verge of bowl eligibility. They had to reschedule a game at the end of the year against some toe tag to try to qualify to get into a bowl game, to get enough wins. And the story said that some of the players on the team were intentionally trying to lose so they wouldn't have to play in a bowl game. And that's a rotten culture. That's when you've got a rotten culture, and you've got to get those players out of there as soon as you can when you identify who they are. But it looks ugly, and they've had some ugly losses this year, but all of a sudden Virginia Tech's 5-2 and have some momentum. This is the first time the new overtime rules were in effect. After 5 overtimes, you just line up for a 2-point play. They want to keep the players from playing as many plays to get injured. And Minnesota. Minnesota is 7-0 for the first time since 1960. In 1960, they won the national championship. It's hard to believe Minnesota has won the national championship, but you really talk about the 30s and 40s and the Benny Bierman, they won about 4 national championships. They were the dynasty in college football before Armory established themselves in the mid-40s. Now they played some toe tags out of conference, and they struggled with them. I think they had to go to overtime to beat South Dakota State. And the first 3 or 4 games were all within one score. But then they started to put it all together and establish themselves. Minnesota's rolling. They've also played some weak competition inside the conference as well. But they're going to be exposed sooner or later. They're going to have to play Wisconsin. We're going to see who a better team is. And if you notice, one thing, I've noticed this when I looked over their stats. Last year, they played a lot of freshmen at the end of the year because of injuries. And those guys got incorporated, and some of them have not come out of the starting lineup. So you've got this kind of mix where they've got a lot of seniors that are playing, and there's a ton of sophomores that are contributing. They're going to have a seamless transition next year when they lose these seniors with his recruiting and the way the sophomores are playing. They're not done being good. They're going to be good for a while. And you have to talk about Casey O'Brien, the holder for Minnesota, 4-time cancer survivor, got to play in this game. That's what you love about college football, stories like that. So here's our top 10. The graphic's going to be right here. Next week is going to be more of a showdown week. Wisconsin at Ohio State, LSU at Auburn. This last week was really fun. I expect more of the same next week. We are on Facebook. We're on Gmail. We're on Twitter. All the platforms are going to be listed below in the description. Thanks for watching us, and we'll see you guys next week.